A priori knowledge, in Western philosophy since the time of Immanuel Kant, knowledge that is acquired independently of any particular experience, as opposed to a posteriori knowledge, which is derived from experience. The Latin phrases a priori, from what is before, and a posteriori, from what is after, were used in philosophy originally to distinguish between arguments from causes and arguments from effects. The first recorded occurrence of the phrases is in the writings of the 14th-century logician Albert of Saxony. Here, an argument a priori is said to be, from causes to the effect, and an argument a posteriori to be, from effects to causes. Similar definitions were given by many later philosophers down to and, including Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, 1646–1716. And the expressions still occur sometimes with these meanings in non-philosophical contexts. Latent in the distinction between the a priori and the a posteriori for Kant is the antithesis between necessary truth and contingent truth. A truth is necessary if it cannot be denied without contradiction. The former applies to a priori judgments, which are arrived at independently of experience and hold universally, and the latter applies to a posteriori judgments, which are dependent on experience and therefore must acknowledge possible exceptions. In his Critique of Pure Reason, 1781–1787, Kant used these distinctions, in part, to explain the special case of mathematical knowledge, which he regarded as the fundamental example of a priori knowledge. Although the use of the term a priori to distinguish knowledge such as that exemplified in mathematics is comparatively recent, the interest of philosophers in that kind of knowledge is almost as old as philosophy itself. In ordinary life, no one finds it puzzling that one can acquire knowledge by looking, feeling, or listening. But philosophers who have taken seriously the possibility of learning by mere thinking have often considered it to require some special explanation. Plato maintained in his dialogues Meno and Phaedo that the learning of geometrical truths involved the recollection of knowledge possessed by the soul in a disembodied existence before its possessor's birth, when it could contemplate the eternal forms directly. Saint Augustine and his medieval followers, sympathizing with Plato's conclusions but unable to accept the details of his theory, declared that such eternal ideas were in the mind of God, who from time to time gave intellectual illumination to human beings. René Descartes, going further in the same direction, held that all the ideas required for a priori knowledge were innate in each human mind. For Kant, the puzzle was to explain the possibility of a priori judgments that were also synthetic, i.e., not merely explicative of concepts, and the solution that he proposed was the doctrine that space, time, and the categories, e.g., causality, about which such judgments could be made, were forms imposed by the mind on the stuff of experience. In each of these theories, the possibility of a priori knowledge is explained by a suggestion that there exists a privileged opportunity for studying the subject matter of such knowledge. The same conception recurs also in the very un-Platonic theory of a priori knowledge first enunciated by Thomas Hobbes in his De Corpore and adopted in the 20th century by the logical empiricists. According to this theory, statements of necessity are knowable a priori because they are merely byproducts of rules governing the use of language. In the 1970s, the American philosopher Saul Kripke challenged the Kantian view by arguing persuasively that there are propositions that are necessarily true but knowable only a posteriori and propositions that are contingently true but knowable a priori.